I think I think the appropriate word is empathy. Yeah, in the sense that calm down.
Ha!
House after the wedding without the wife knowing we're entering a new house. Like literally is a house. Yeah.
Wait, so you pitied me? That's what
No,
you're saying?
pity is different from empathy.
Hello guys. Hi Tito Tribers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to my channel. And it's been a while we had this man. I think it's been over a month. Yeah. It's been over a month. I don't know if it's up to 2 months, but it's been over a month, well over a month.
I've been busy.
Yeah, and today we want to talk about, so a lady asked me a question, and she's asked me this question for a while, and I promised that I was going to make this post on Wednesday, so this will go up on Wednesday. I'm currently not on any social media platforms. I'm just taking a few days off to center myself a bit more. But this will be live, and I'm sure that by the time I come back, y'all would have watched it. So the question she asked me is how I was able to redeem the timeline between my husband and I. So if you do not know, I'm going to link the card here. My husband is 2 years younger than I am age, and so we, of course, different timelines. By the time I was ready for marriage, societally, you know, and all that, emotionally, mentally, and all that, ready, he wasn't ready, you know. So she was asking because I think she's in a similar situation, so she wanted to know how to handle it. So I decided to bring him here because I'll be sharing from my perspective, and then he would also be sharing from his perspective, because funny enough we kind of had that. So I think I'll just jump right into it. So when we started dating, he was 23. He was going to 24 that year, but it was 23. He had been 23 for like 2 months. Birthday is November, you know. So we started dating while I was 23. So just imagine, I was going to be 25 about 2-3 months from then on. I was going to be 25. He was 20. Was I going to be 25 or 26? I was going to be 26. Sorry. So so yeah, 2018. I was going to be 26. As a 26-year-old African woman, your mates are getting married. People are asking you when you're going to get married. For someone like me who always had a very close relationship with the Holy Spirit, I kind of told the Holy Spirit at the time what I wanted, which was to get married at 25, 26. I still love the idea, even though I can't have it anymore, but I still love the idea of my children being in their mid-20s when I'm 50. So that was a goal for me. It didn't play out like that. So at the time he was asking me out, I remember that was one of the questions I asked him, that fam, max I can wait is till the next year. Like, I want to get married the next year, 27. I can do December, but I wanted to get married next year. And he assured me that, yeah, he's gonna, you know, because I was also thinking about it for him, that may be pressure for him. This was at the initial part. I don't know if it's just as we started dating or before we started dating. So we had a conversation and he agreed. So we forged ahead in the relationship. One breakup, just one, before this next year, but it was like a 12-hour breakup. It was nothing serious. That's what do you want to talk about before we now hit the next year, or I should move on?
So maybe I was not necessarily thinking about it in detail as of the point I agreed, because of course I wanted to date you, and beyond dating you, I've mentioned the fact that I was open to dating only people that I could marry, right? So really the end goal was, of course, marriage for me. So at the time, right, not too many things were, because really at that point in life as well, I was trying to figure out a couple of things from a personal point of view. I was just starting out career, and I was not still sure I was going to sort of follow through on the career. Maybe I was going to go into business and all. So some things are not still clear, and of course, in light of that, it came up like this could be a possibility. So reflecting, of course, I should have provided proper context,
But
yeah, I should have provided proper context to where I was and all the considerations I was looking at before saying this or this, or maybe saying, okay, this is a possibility, but I won't promise because of this and these reasons, right? That would sort of help her, but that was not done initially.
Okay. Okay, so I think before we also move forward, I want to give context to where we were economically, academically. So I was doing my master's at the time. So I was doing my master's, I was working. At the time, I was actually earning about 6 figures at the time. Yeah, at the time, I was already earning 6 figures. And yeah, he was, it was, when we started dating, when I knew that he had, so let me build it from there. When I knew that he had the intern, was in January. He had just finished school, first degree. He just finished first degree, I think, few months before then. So
Yeah.
he was looking to go for NYSC at the time. He had already started working where I was working as an intern. He came in as an intern. I was HR manager at the time. So he had come in, so I knew his salary at the time. I approved his salary to be paid, at the time. And so when we started dating was March. I think he went to serve in May or April. I'm not sure if it was end of April or early May that he went to serve. So that's where he was. So maybe he resigned from or he notified. He resigned and then he went to serve, and he was, so basically at the time I think they hadn't approved the 3K at the time, so it was 19.8. His income was 19.8 at the time.
Well, plus some other.
Plus the office as well.
Yeah, the office. Then I think then I was still playing.
Yes, he was also drumming at the time. So
those were the
so those were that was the economic. So I think that should give you a picture. So basically I was in the higher at that time, upper part. My life was a bit structured. I was living with my uncle. My parents were in Ibadan. I was in Lagos. That's still the arrangement between my parents and I anyway. So he was staying with his parents at the time. Still staying with his parents. I'd never left home. So that was the picture. And then we had conversation, and I think from just where he could see, that was the answer. So we continued dating. It was very rocky initially because so many things had to align at the time, and there are so many things that he didn't know, I didn't know. There's so many preferences that I didn't even know I had, So anyway, it was rocky, but then somehow we just kept knowing that this was it for us. So we were going ahead with it. I don't know if you've seen the video where I said God appeared to my husband to convince him to marry me, or to date me at the time. I think after we started dating, he started having misgivings. My misgivings were before, his were after we started dating. So we passed that. I'm going to link that so that you can watch it. So we continued dating, and and we just knew that was it. And so we moved to the next year. I remember this was 2019. 2019, between January and April, I had about, I don't know, I missed wedding, too many weddings, back to back to back. I remember there was a day my husband just was feeling, my boyfriend at the time was looking sad that the way that my friends are getting married, that it's not, am I not going to start putting pressure? I kind of told him that, no, don't worry, it's a lie. Deep in my heart, I'm like, fam, Shebi is end of the year. Shebi is towards the end of the year. My birthday, my 27th birthday. Somehow, I was kind of expecting that he would propose.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. I was kind of expecting that. No, I'm not kidding. Sorry, the answer to that is no. The plan was that we're going to get married at the end of 2019. So in my head, I was thinking, okay, so he's going to propose. Birthday came. We're supposed to even go for one dinner like that at Duni's kitchen. There was traffic, 4 hours traffic.
Oh yeah, true.
We got there. They had closed. I cried because somehow a part of me thought that he wanted to propose in Duni's kitchen. So not only was there no proposal, the place was locked when we got there. There was traffic. but I never said it. I did say it out. So 2019, I now started hinting a lot about proposal, and then I will notice that his mood will change when I'm talking about proposal. I'm like, I don't understand. We had an agreement now. We talked about it and we agreed, babe, I was going to get married this year. What's going on? And then I don't know if you've seen any of my videos where I talked about how I was in my head. I wanted to be married. I wanted to give my mom a grandchild before she was 60. So my mom was going to be 60 the next year, 2020. So it's part of the calculation that, okay, if he proposes to me in May, we'll get married in December. I'll have given birth by my mom's, like, at least my baby will be like a month old or 3 months old or something. Man proposed, God disposed. I mean, how did the investor say it? So towards September in 2019, I think that's when we had a conversation. I'm not sure if it was chatting or it was a call, I can't remember. I just know that we had a conversation where we now talk. I noticed, so there's this thing that my husband does. He's been doing it for a while, but hopefully that stopped, because we now had a conversation about it recently. When we have an agreement, maybe we talk about something and reach a consensus, he's a thinker. He's an unapologetic thinker. So for instance, when for me, I'm a thinker as well, but I think when I think it's necessary. So if I've had a conversation with someone and we agree on something, I stop thinking about that thing, or I start thinking about how to move on from where we what's the word now? Agreed. He still thinks of it from the beginning, still thinking of scenarios. You know, he's a investment guy, so I think it's part of the makeup for a natural analyst. So he's still thinking about it. He's still checking SWOT analysis and all that. Now, for me, I don't even have a problem with it in full essence, because number one, I have a problem, but it's not a major problem. Problem is the problem is that I don't like talking too much. I don't know how it even happened, because I used to talk a lot as a child. I don't now know how it happened that I grew up. Once the talk is too long, I'm tired, I'm drained. So I don't even want to talk too long. Anyway, but that's not so much of an issue. But my husband, it's not about talking. He's still thinking. He's still trying to say, okay, how did this decision I take? I agreed with my wife or my girlfriend or fiance at the time. Fiance, how can it be better improved? The only issue with that is he's not telling me what he's thinking. He's here. He's in his head. Now, this head.
Why?
Wait, bring the head.
Why are you toasting my head?
Toasting. Bring the head. Now, this head, do you understand me now, does not move to the mouth. You are going off frame.
If you kiss my mouth a lot, it will come out.
It doesn't come to the, so he doesn't say it, right? But because he has thought about it and he now starts to act. So not act out. So maybe when I broach the topic, you can feel the apprehension that in my head this thing has changed. So that's what happened. I understand now. Before I didn't understand though. HS and I literally HS had to explain this thing to me. So pray about what you understand, because actually it was HS that explained it to me. So
after we had that talk?
While we're having talk, he explained it, and after he now broke it down for me. For me. So that's what happened. So I noticed that I'll talk about proposal or maybe preferred ring and all of that. His mood will just take a nosedive. I'm like, I noticed this the first time, and then there's also this thing of don't be too desperate, so I'm trying not to be poor. We had an agreement. So one time Shasha had mustered up enough courage to sit him down, like, guy, what's going on? We talked about this thing. First of all, my expectation had been dashed. I didn't get proposed to when my book came out. What a beautiful story it would have been. The day I launched my first book, I get proposed. You get? It didn't happen like that. Anyway, and then I know some people may want to say that, but you didn't have a house, you didn't have a car. I've kind of never been worried about things like that somehow. I just feel like once HS, that's the way HS and I operate. I feel like once I'm ready, he just makes things available. So it wasn't even an issue for me. I just knew that once we wanted to get married, things would fall in place. So it was never an issue. I just needed him to be like aligned. So we had that conversation, and then he now speaks his mind that his work, this is where he is, analysis. He literally did a geometric progression, or would I say arithmetic progression, of how much he's earning, what it's going to be, blah 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 blah.
So at that point, yeah, there were many considerations for me from a financial position.
Yeah.
Because firstly, and I think is material, I mentioned that at the point I left school, right, or actually just before I left school, in my head, like
He's
the
also
earliest
the
time,
firstborn. Sorry, I just have to put that up.
the earliest time I was going to get married was like 10 years after. All that was in my head primarily was to make money.
I'm sorry, was this before or after you asked me out? Because I'm squeezing your leg to know what you're saying.
This is just before I left school.
Okay.
Yeah, was 10 years after, and the consideration was at that point really from a money perspective, a lot of things would be sorted. In fact, one of the things I said I was going to do really that like gonna buy a house after the wedding without the wife knowing we're entering a new house, like literally is a house. Yeah, those were like
see as it shocked me.
So those were thoughts and dreams and plans I had, right? So really also part of the plan, I think I've mentioned before that I was not really looking to get into a relationship as well. But then it happened, and at the point it happened, I needed to be.
I struck him.
I think the appropriate word is empathy. Yeah, in the sense that calm down.
Ha! Hey!
I think it's empathy in the
for
sense.
what?
Can I contextualize?
For what?
It's empathy in the sense that why will I wait for 10 years when someone is already ready?
Right? Wait. So you pitied me. Now you're saying
pity is different from empathy.
So you empathize
with
me.
Intelligence, right?
To get married to me. Hey God. Oh.
So I looked at it from a middle ground perspective that I believe at this point I should be able to compromise my own personal desires, same as she's compromising her way. It looked like a middle ground. So initially it was like let's see, maybe in the next like 4 years, and this is after I started dating, right?
You're talking about 4 years after I started dating?
Yeah. So let's see, maybe in the next 4 years, financially I should be okay, right? On her end as well, in as much as she's ready, because I knew that she's ready, like she mentioned, right? So it was just a case of, okay, maybe she'll understand that, okay, you're building and everything, so let's just find and we'll do middle ground of 4 years, like I said. So after I'd communicated that 2019 is feasible and everything, and then I got a job, thanks to God and everything. I was trying to settle in. So it was during that period I also had clarity regarding my next at least 5 years, right? So I sort of knew that I was in the building stage from a career perspective. And then in 2019, when I was expected to propose, actually we're expected to get married at the end of 2019. At that point,
we agreed, not expected. I say expected.
Okay, agreed is the word. So for me, yeah, honestly, I was hoping that she would just see that boy, he's not ready yet, and I like him. I like him, so let's just keep going. So that was what I was hoping, that I won't have to bring up the conversation, because the way, honestly, like she mentioned, is always because when I commit to something, typically I don't like going back. And beyond that again is also the fact that sometimes when I commit to something, especially when it's someone I care about, as much as possible I don't want to disappoint. So that conversation, like rehashing the conversation and changing the terms of it, comes off like the whole expression and everything. I really do not look forward to it. Now, it's something I'm working on now, but as of that point, I just didn't know how to go about it. So, and the reality I was in was everything was just a lot, because I was thinking, I've not left my parents' house. How much am I even earning?
Yeah.
Right. Like
financial implication.
If I say let me leave, like how will I pay the rent? how, like, they were just, and rent is like the least thing. In fact, I didn't even know how much it costs to furnish household at that point.
We're not on Pinterest. Don't go to Pinterest. Don't go there.
So point, yeah. I was thinking about the numbers and reality.
Because the number guy.
Yeah, and it was quite overwhelming for me because it didn't balance. That's true.
Yeah. So that happened, and we had a conversation. Initially, I was a bit put off. No, I wasn't a bit. I was very angry because at the time I didn't understand as I understand now that when we decide something, you know, he still thinks about it. Like he said, he's working on it and everything. So it felt like a betrayal of trust to me. Like, we agreed on something, you thought different, you didn't communicate this, you just strung me along. Because I was working at something. I'm not dating at the time. Like I said, I was on a man fast. A lot of people have asked me, well, I'm going to do a vlog, don't worry about it. I was on a man fast for 2 years. I broke this man fast and started dating you. I wasn't dating for dating sake. So at the time, I felt betrayed, you know. So that was it. So we had a conversation. Anyway, long story short, yeah. Then we spoke with my best friend, Janet. So Janet was not talking to me. Like, Tito, what's the difference between? Because I think he was not asking for. No, I think he had brought maybe 2.5 years or something. I can't remember. Maybe 2020. I think. So we're supposed to get married maybe end of 2020 or 2021. That's what he was proffering at the time. The solution he was proffering, I didn't even want to hear. So my best friend now waited in that, still calm down, you know. Shout out to you, Janet. You used to stress me a lot. So yeah, she kind of prevailed upon me. Then somehow in my spirit, I wasn't happy, but I said, okay, no problem. Since he at the time had already opened up, so you couldn't blame him in that sense, because what he tabled was not emotional or I just don't know if we're going to get married, I want to be sure. No, that's not what he was saying. He was talking about finances and where is that, and the journey to where we'll be sensible enough to bring a life partner, you know. So I kind of said, okay. So what we just discovered was it was monetary, right? That if he kept saying that if, for instance, maybe he gets a big break, like a better job and all that, he'll get married, you know. But that what he had now, he just wanted to stay with it and all. So I'm like, okay. So moving forward, so that was around August, September actually. But I wasn't satisfied. But I didn't tell him. In my mind, I just felt, no, actually, God will not do this to me. So I spoke with my pastor at the time. Pastor Lai. He had gotten married a few months before then, and I also remember that he was like, there was a journey to him getting married as well. So I spoke with him. He sat me down that day and told me that, well, he too actually didn't want to get married, because for a man, for most men, he was looking at the commitments and all that it would have taken from him, you know, and he wasn't ready for it. But that his wife prayed about it, that if it was God's will, God should make it available enough for him to be convinced to get married. So he said to just pray about it, yes, and just leave it with God and continue dating. Don't put him under any pressure. Don't talk about it again. So I kind of just died it, but I was praying. Not that it was just it was conversations with God. I would just have conversations with him, and I think he gave me a scripture. I think so, but I've forgotten it. I really should start writing the scriptures per issues, because I think I forget when we move on. So he gave me a scripture and I moved on. First Sunday in November, it was Thanksgiving service to Global Impact Church. We usually used to go to church together and then go home together, but this day we had an appointment with a friend who had just gotten married a few months before, and we're going to record in his house. And there wasn't YouTube then, but I think I was recording from my Instagram page at the time. Someone was going to go with me, you know. And he used to do something in church towards the end of service, so I used to wait for him, you know. And I was waiting in the cab. I'd ordered the cab, so at some point he just sent me, he sent me a chat that, okay, order the cab. So I ordered, and then the cab came, so I was sitting in the cab. As he came in with a sense of urgency, and he says, babe, we're getting married next year. I'm Because that's actually what I said. So prior to then, those people that worked on my heart enough to say, whenever we get married, I'm fine. God, because it was like I was fighting. It was a timeline in my head, so it felt like I had failed if I didn't meet the timeline. So those people that worked with me, I just surrendered. I think in that service. Yeah, I think it was in that service I surrendered. He just came and he said, babe, like, he literally ran into the casada and faced me before we even started the trip or anything, because we didn't have a car at the time. We're getting married next year. I just looked at him like, who is this guy? I was also trying to tell him, no, like, don't rush it. He was like, no. So what happened?
So what happened was, I think I had thought about it, and really after we had that conversation, it came off like, okay, now that I've like in my mind and everything, then that means there's time, right? So we can just continue building and all of that. Then I had a conversation with Pastor Jide, right? So Pastor Jide is someone that I really respect, and his journey with his wife also
kind of mimicked us.
Yeah, mimicked us in a way. And so really, to an extent, let's say it's a reference point, right? So I was having a conversation with him, and he just mentioned to me that, someone, when are you getting married? And I'm like, I'm not sure yet. I'm still in the building stage and everything. It's like, when you say you're in the building stage, what do you mean? I said that career-wise, I told him, and of course he knew where I worked and all of that. So he's like, okay, like he understands and he gets where I'm coming from. But then he wants to ask me a question: that if I had money, if you had money today, will you?
When was this conversation? Like, was it that Sunday?
Was that Sunday?
Oh, okay.
Is it? If you have money today,
Wow.
if you have money today, will you get married? I'm like, yes. It's like, then it shouldn't be your bother. Money should not be your bother, right? Go ahead. And I'm like, for whatever reason, yeah, it just dawned on me that I was, and again, and so sometimes, right, you forget what sort of drove you or your propelling force, because eventually, about 8 months later, right, a new hurdle
You're gonna
came,
get a house.
right? And at that point, the money consideration was like a reality, because it's like money is what you. And then again, of course, it was. Yeah, when for whatever reason, it was just like some.
Like like a light bulb moment.
Yeah, and at that point, I'm like, okay, you know what, we're gonna do this. Yeah. And when I said we're gonna do this, like, it was not. Everything just sort of made sense, because even after that point, it was not just a spur of the moment.
And you were how old? You were going to be 25.
Yeah, I was. So even from an age perspective,
it didn't look.
No, for me, it was not.
Were you okay?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because at that point, yeah.
I always thought the age was also a part of it.
No. So when I said I was gonna get married 10 years, whatever, right? I was not looking at age. Like, okay, when I'm this XYZ old, that's when I'm mature enough and all of that. No, I was looking at it from a resource perspective. Yeah, because frankly, I don't like thinking about money. Like, I don't like thinking about money. So, when I told her, I remember, as much as possible, in as much as I said that we're going to get married in 2020, right? I didn't tell her when I was going to propose. So, of course.
Very, very funny. That's the funny part of it. You told me something that we're going to get married next year. You had asked me. I told you that I prefer.
Proposed 6 months before.
I told him that I prefer. a year proposal, that I want to plan my wedding, that I want to enjoy the process. And I told you, we kind of agreed that we prefer a December wedding. So no, you people, George is with me. What do you expect?
Oh well, so I didn't think that you were going to run the analysis.
Why would
that
I not run
deeply.
the analysis?
Yeah, but then it was also a consideration for me because I remembered she said she wanted to enjoy that whole period
No,
of
I didn't enjoy
the fiancé.
nothing.
I think the material thing to point out is, um, yeah, I think as a guy that is younger, um, if you're dating somebody and you know that you want to marry this person, yeah, the question is, what is inhibiting you from marrying this person? Now, if it is a case of you want to know this person a lot better, you want the courting process to be material such that you guys build um, intimacy on a couple of levels, right? So that makes sense. But my recommendation is both of you should be on the same page, right? If that's the case. Now, if it is financial, yeah, again, this honestly will boil down to your relationship with God and the type of conviction you have, right?
2,000 years later.
Well, I think just review what is preventing you from going ahead, right? If it's money, um, I think to a very large extent you need to fall back to what you believe in. Really, in my case, I'm a Christian, firm believer of God. I'll fall back to God, right, and sort of get rest in the provisions. Now, get the convictions you need. If God tells you to go ahead, right, to the whole process, go ahead. If what's the word, you're not hearing anything, do not take it as a yes to go ahead, right? Get that rest first, because if you do not get the rest, you have a case where eventually you take steps, right? And when you start taking steps, maybe frustrations and emotions set in, which really at the end of the day to rub off on your partner, right? So my recommendation is, as much as possible, get rest, and that rest can only be found with God. um, Plan appropriately, but in the event it's not a money consideration, maybe you have money but you feel you're not there. I feel to a very large extent you need to bring your partner into where you are from a mental perspective and emotional perspective, right? You guys should talk about it. And again, I'll say to the partner as well, in as much as you're pressed for time, right? Also try to um, understand from his own perspective whatever reason he's holding on. Now, it may be a foolish reason, and which is why, to a large extent, it's good for us to date people that are submitted to God, and then also submitted to some people in the sense that it may be a reason that you feel, okay, you know what, see, I really do not understand what this perspective you have, and I feel we should speak with this person. That's if you feel we should speak, and the person you're speaking to is somebody that has the ear of your partner, right? I feel such conversations could help because at some point, eventually, the second level of our own journey, right? It was my pastor's wife that spoke with me, and um, at that point, it made sense, and it sort of provided the lights I needed at that point.
I want to speak to the elderly lady, not elderly, the lady who is older. So like he said, he has spoken for me. He has spoken for himself. But number one, I think communication is very important and not to fight. And also maybe if you're currently about to date the person, I think it was one of the things I liked was that we kind of had that conversation before, even though we could renegotiate it, but I mean it was already on ground. So have that conversation. Don't just say, oh, let's just date. If you're dating for married, let the guy know. Tell him that this is the span of time that I'm looking. Maybe don't give him an exact time or like an exact date, but give him like a range. Just give him a span of time as well, but have a conversation, and think about it. Don't just say, oh, we'll discuss it, let's see how it goes, we'll discuss it by and by. I think you should have that conversation beforehand and ask him. Now, for instance, maybe the time has passed for you or it's getting really close. Center yourself, calm down. Don't carry that pressure thing that, oh, let's get married, let's get married now. I don't care what you're doing, let's get married. Honestly, try your best to. Nothing is ever that serious. Don't carry it like that. It's actually never really that serious. So yeah, converse, have the conversation. Number two, whatever he says or whatever you people agree on, still table that matter to God. Even if you agree, still just say, Father, your will be done, you know. And I would say, don't just for number three, and I'm going to speak to the guy as well, don't just hear God, don't just have rest. They are good, but one of the things I advise people to do is get an anchor. See, that anchor is like holding God here or here. Don't hold God here, but here. Holding God here, like telling God, you said this was your promise. That word, by anchor I mean a word, and God always honors that. It's happened in my life a lot. You heard me say that I need to even be remembering scriptures that I use for seasons. God gives me one and I hold it. It's like the Holy Spirit just keep reminding me for years, for seasons, you know. You just hold it and put your teeth there and sink it in that this is what you said, you know, and that's what should drive the prayer for both of you as well. Then the lady, please be understanding. Like I said, he was 23 when we started dating. At the time that I was talking about whatever, he was 24, going to be 25. He was young, you know. I was 27 and maybe 4 months or so. So yeah, I was not. We're not view now. We're kind of on the same level, age-wise. You know, yeah. I can never be less older. I'm still, you get, but on the same. But at the time, you know, that dynamic. I think if we were 40, 42, you know, I think it's not going to matter at that time that you guys are basically mates. But at that age where you're 23, 25 and you have a lady, the dynamics are a bit different. I understand, but you can still be very understanding. I think if both of you are open and transparent, prayerful, spiritual, you hear God and God is very involved, you guys will be fine. So I think that's just basically what we would say. So guys, yeah, thank you so much for watching till this. We love you. Mwah.